Ladies and gentlemen, your value is something that exists independently of the opinions, actions, or recognition of others. It is not something that fluctuates based on how someone treats you, how they perceive you, or whether they choose to acknowledge your worth. True value is intrinsic. It is something you must recognize within yourself before expecting the world to do the same. From an early age, we are conditioned to seek validation. Society teaches us to measure our worth through achievements, relationships, and the opinions of others. We grow up believing that being liked, admired, or chosen is proof of our value. This leads to a dangerous cycle of seeking external affirmation rather than cultivating internal strength. When someone treats us as an option, neglects our presence, or fails to see our significance, it can feel like a direct attack on our worth. But the truth is, their perception has nothing to do with reality. Consider a gold coin. Whether it is admired, discarded, or buried beneath the dirt, its value remains unchanged. It does not lose its worth simply because someone fails to recognize it. Similarly, your value is not diminished when someone overlooks you. It is not their recognition that gives you value, and it is not their absence that takes it away. When someone treats you like an option, it often stems from their own inability to appreciate what is in front of them. They may be distracted, emotionally unavailable, or simply unaware of your worth. Their failure to see you clearly is not a reflection of you, it is a reflection of them. Yet, many people internalize this rejection, believing that if only they were more attractive, more successful, more accommodating, they would finally be valued. This mindset is dangerous because it places power in the hands of others, allowing them to dictate how you see yourself. The moment you begin to rely on others to determine your worth, you set yourself up for disappointment. People are fickle. Their opinions change. Their priorities shift. If your value is tied to their validation, then your sense of self will always be unstable. One day you may feel invincible because someone showers you with attention. The next you may feel invisible because they have withdrawn. This emotional roller coaster is the result of giving away your power. True confidence comes from within. It is built through self-awareness, self-respect, and an unshakable belief in your own worth. It means understanding that you are complete on your own, that your existence is meaningful regardless of who acknowledges it. This realization is liberating because it allows you to navigate life without constantly seeking approval. It means that when someone treats you as an afterthought, you do not need to prove yourself. You do not need to fight for their recognition. Instead, you walk away not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Walking away is not an act of weakness. It is an act of strength. It is a declaration that you refuse to be treated as an option. It is a statement that says, I know my worth, and I will not settle for less than I deserve. This does not mean you must hold grudges or seek revenge. It simply means you remove yourself from situations where you are not valued, not because you need to teach them a lesson, but because you value yourself enough not to stay. When you detach from the need for external validation, you become untouchable. No rejection can break you, no neglect can shake you, and no one else's choices can define you. You learn to find fulfillment in your own growth, in your own journey, rather than in how others perceive you. You begin to operate from a place of abundance rather than lack. You stop chasing people, stop begging for attention, and stop lowering yourself to fit into someone else's standards. This shift in mindset is powerful. The irony is that the moment you stop seeking validation, people start to notice you differently. They sense your confidence, your detachment, your self-assurance. Those who once overlooked you may suddenly realize what they lost. But by then it no longer matters. Their realization is irrelevant because you have already moved on. You have already built a foundation of self-worth that does not rely on them. One of the greatest freedoms in life is knowing that you do not need anyone to complete you. Companionship, love, and admiration are wonderful, but they are not the source of your worth. They are additions to an already full life, not the foundation of it. When you understand this, you stop allowing temporary people to affect your permanent sense of self. People will come and go. Some will appreciate you, others will not. Some will treat you well, others will take you for granted. None of this changes who you are. None of this defines your value. The only person who can truly determine your worth is you. So when someone treats you as an option, let them. Do not chase, do not beg, do not try to prove yourself. Simply step back and focus on yourself. Invest in your growth, your happiness, your peace. Because when you do, you will realize that their treatment of you was never a reflection of your worth, it was a reflection of theirs. And that is a burden they must carry, not you. Pain is often seen as something inflicted upon us by external forces, other people, circumstances, or fate. We believe that heartbreak, disappointment, and suffering come from outside ourselves, as if we are merely victims of the world around us. But in reality, pain is not just something that happens to us, it is something we allow, something we feed, and something we prolong through our own choices. While we cannot always control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. And it is in that response that we either free ourselves or deepen our suffering. Consider a person who remains in a toxic relationship, knowing they are being disrespected and undervalued. They feel the pain of being mistreated, yet they stay. They justify the behavior, make excuses, and cling to the hope that things will change. But the longer they stay, the more they suffer, not because the other person is causing their pain, but because they are choosing to endure it. The situation may have been initiated by someone else, but the continued suffering is self-inflicted. Pain is not just about what happens, it is about how we interpret it, how we react to it, and how much power we give it over our lives. Two people can experience the same event, rejection, failure, betrayal, and have completely different responses. One may sink into despair, dwelling on the hurt and allowing it to consume them, while the other may accept the situation, learn from it, and move forward. The event itself is neutral. It is the individual's perception and reaction that determine whether the pain is temporary or prolonged. People often hold on to pain because they are afraid of letting go. They believe that if they stop feeling hurt, it means they have accepted defeat, that their suffering somehow validates their experience. But in truth, clinging to pain only prolongs the suffering. It does not change the past, nor does it bring justice. It only keeps the wounds open, preventing healing. There is a certain comfort in self-inflicted pain, as strange as it may seem. It gives people a sense of identity, a reason to stay in the past, a way to justify their fears. Someone who has been betrayed may continue to replay the event in their mind, feeling the sting of betrayal over and over again, as if reliving it will somehow bring closure. But all it does is reinforce the pain, keeping them trapped in a cycle of suffering. The choice to keep revisiting the past is a choice to keep experiencing pain. Emotional pain is often intensified by attachment. People suffer not because they lost something, but because they refuse to accept that it is gone. They hold on to memories, expectations, and illusions, refusing to see reality as it is. This resistance creates suffering. When a person refuses to accept that someone has walked away, they prolong their pain by fighting against the truth. When they expect life to unfold in a certain way and it does not, they create unnecessary suffering by refusing to adapt. The more they resist, the more they suffer, and that suffering is entirely within their control. The same principle applies to regret. Many people spend years suffering over past mistakes, punishing themselves for things they cannot change. They replay moments wishing they had acted differently, said something else, or made a different choice. But regret is a form of self-inflicted pain. It serves no purpose other than to keep a person stuck in the past. What has been done cannot be undone, and the only way forward is to learn from it and move on. Yet some people choose to dwell, allowing their own minds to become a prison. Pain is also self-inflicted through attachment to external validation. When a person ties their self-worth to the approval of others, they place their happiness in the hands of something they cannot control. If someone praises them, they feel good. If someone rejects them, they feel worthless. This kind of dependency guarantees suffering because no one can control how others think or act. The moment a person realizes that their value is not determined by anyone else, they free themselves from this unnecessary pain. Another way people inflict pain upon themselves is by holding on to resentment. They carry grudges, replaying past wrongs in their minds, fueling their anger and bitterness. They believe that by staying angry they are somehow punishing the other person. But in reality, resentment only harms the one who holds on to it. The person they resent may have moved on, completely unaware of the grudge being held against them. Meanwhile, the one holding on to the resentment continues to suffer, poisoning their own peace. Choosing to forgive not for the other person's sake, but for one's own is a way to break free from self-inflicted pain. Fear is another source of self-inflicted suffering. People fear failure, so they do not take risks. They fear rejection, so they do not express their true selves. They fear change, so they stay in situations that no longer serve them. This fear creates suffering not because of external circumstances, but because of the limitations it places on the person. They suffer not because life is cruel, but because they are afraid to step into their own power. True freedom from pain begins with acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It means seeing things as they are and making a conscious choice to move forward. It means understanding that pain is part of life, but suffering is a choice. A person who has been hurt can either carry that pain with them or let it go. They can either allow it to define them or use it as fuel for growth. The key to overcoming self-inflicted pain is detachment, not detachment from emotions, but detachment from the illusion of control. A person cannot control how others behave, how life unfolds, or what the past holds. But they can control how they react, how they interpret their experiences, and what they choose to focus on. By shifting their mindset, they shift their reality. At any moment, a person can decide to stop suffering. They can stop replaying the past, stop seeking validation, stop holding on to things that no longer serve them. They can choose peace over pain, acceptance over resistance, and wisdom over regret. The pain may have started with someone else, but its continuation is always a choice. And the power to end it lies within. Walking away is one of the most powerful decisions a person can make. It is often seen as an act of surrender, but in reality, it is an assertion of control. The moment you remove yourself from a situation where you are undervalued, disrespected, or taken for granted, the dynamic shifts. The power that was once in someone else's hands is reclaimed by you. Instead of chasing validation, begging for attention, or waiting for someone to realize your worth, you choose yourself. And in that moment, everything changes, not just for you, but for those who once overlooked you. People tend to take things for granted when they assume they will always be there. When you make yourself too available, constantly forgiving disrespect, or staying in places where you are not valued, others have no reason to change their behavior. They know you will always be there, no matter how they treat you. There is no urgency, no fear of loss, no real consequences for their actions. They may like having you around, but they do not feel the need to truly appreciate you. But when you walk away, not in anger, not to prove a point, but out of genuine self-respect, you disrupt that comfort. You introduce something people are not always prepared for: absence. Absence creates awareness. When someone is always present, their value is often overlooked. But when they are gone, the impact of their presence becomes undeniable. The person who once ignored you now finds themselves wondering where you went. The one who dismissed you now begins to notice the silence left behind. This is not manipulation, it is simply human nature. People often fail to see what they have until it is no longer theirs. Walking away also forces people to confront their own actions. As long as you remain in a situation that hurts them, the person causing the pain has no reason to change. They may not even realize the depth of their actions because you are still there, tolerating them. But when you remove yourself, they are left with nothing but the consequences of their own behavior. They are forced to ask themselves why you left, what they did, and what they lost. This is the moment where self-reflection begins, but by then you have already moved forward. The true power of walking away is not in making someone regret their choices, but in freeing yourself from a situation that no longer serves you. It is in reclaiming your time, energy, and self-worth. It is in understanding that staying where you are not valued is a betrayal of yourself. Many people fear walking away because they believe it means losing something important. But in reality, what you lose is an illusion, the illusion that you needed that person, that validation, that situation to be whole. When you walk away, you break free from that illusion. You start to see that life continues, that your worth was never tied to someone else's recognition of it. You begin to find clarity, realizing how much of your energy was spent on something that was never meant for you. Instead of waiting for someone to change, you change yourself. Instead of hoping someone will finally see you, you see yourself. This shift in perspective is what creates balance. There is also an undeniable strength in detachment. When you stop reacting, stop pleading, and stop engaging with people who drain your energy, you gain power over your own life. Those who once controlled your emotions no longer have that hold over you. You no longer waste time trying to prove your worth, because you understand that real value does not need validation. And once you detach from the need for external approval, you become unstoppable. People often return when they realize what they lost, but by then it is usually too late. They come back, not because they suddenly value you, but because they feel the emptiness your absence created. They seek to regain the comfort of having you around, but they are no longer entitled to your presence. Walking away does not just shift the balance in their mind, it shifts the balance in yours. You no longer seek closure, because you have already given it to yourself. You no longer wait for an apology, because you no longer need one. This kind of strength is rare, and that is why it is so powerful. Most people stay, hoping things will change. Most people accept less than they deserve because they are afraid of the unknown. But those who have the courage to walk away, to remove themselves from places where they are not valued, are the ones who truly understand their worth. They do not settle, they do not chase, they do not beg. They simply move forward, knowing that what is meant for them will never require them to sacrifice their dignity. Walking away is not about proving anything to anyone else. It is about proving to yourself that you are enough, that you deserve better, and that you refuse to settle for anything less. And when you do that, you do not just shift the balance in one situation, you shift the balance in your entire life. Indifference is one of the most powerful responses a person can give. It is far more effective than anger, more impactful than confrontation, and stronger than any form of revenge. When someone has wronged you, disrespected you, or taken you for granted, the natural impulse is to react, to show them how much they hurt you, to make them feel what you felt, or to prove that you are not to be underestimated. But the truth is, the moment you invest your energy in proving something to them, you are still giving them power over you. You are still emotionally tied to their actions. Indifference, on the other hand, removes that power entirely. Revenge often comes from a place of pain. It is driven by the desire to balance the scales, to make someone experience the same suffering they inflicted. But by seeking revenge, you remain emotionally connected to the very personal situation you wish to move beyond. You continue to dwell on what happened, replaying the hurt, fueling your anger, and allowing it to dictate your actions. In the end, you may achieve a temporary sense of satisfaction, but you also prolong your own suffering. You keep yourself trapped in the past, letting resentment consume your energy. True strength is found not in proving a point, but in walking away without looking back. Indifference is a statement that speaks louder than any words or actions fueled by revenge. It communicates that you have moved on, that their presence or absence in your life is irrelevant, and that you are too focused on your own growth to be bothered by their existence. It is not passive or weak, it is the ultimate form of control. When you are indifferent, you do not need closure, explanations, or apologies. You do not need to show them what they lost. You simply let them go, and in doing so you set yourself free. People expect reactions. They expect anger, tears, or desperate attempts to gain their attention. When you give them nothing, no response, no emotion, no acknowledgement, it unsettles them. It forces them to face the reality of their actions without the satisfaction of knowing they still have a hold on you. They begin to wonder why you are not affected, why you do not care, why you are not fighting for their recognition. And in that silence they feel the weight of their choices more than they ever would if you had tried to make them feel it. Indifference is not about pretending not to care. It is about genuinely reaching a place where you no longer do. It is about redirecting your energy toward yourself instead of wasting it on someone who did not value you. The moment you stop seeking their approval, stop reacting to their behavior, and stop allowing their actions to dictate your emotions, you reclaim your power. You shift the focus from them to yourself, and in doing so you step into a new level of freedom. There is a misconception that revenge is a way to regain control. But in reality, revenge is just another form of attachment. It keeps you emotionally invested in a situation that no longer serves you. Indifference, on the other hand, is true detachment. It means that whatever they do, say, or feel no longer affects your peace. You are no longer controlled by the past, by resentment, or by the need to prove yourself. You simply live your life on your own terms, unaffected by those who once tried to diminish your worth. The most powerful people are not those who seek revenge, but those who remain unshaken by the actions of others. They understand that real strength is not found in retaliation, but in their ability to remain centered, composed, and focused on their own path. They know that the best response to disrespect is not anger but success. The best way to move on is not to make someone else feel your pain, but to refuse to let them have any influence over your happiness. Indifference is not about suppressing emotions or pretending something did not hurt. It is about processing the pain, accepting what happened, and choosing not to let it define you. It is about understanding that some people and situations do not deserve a reaction, and that the best revenge is a life lived without them in it. When you reach a place where you no longer need closure, validation, or acknowledgement, you become truly free. People who once took you for granted will eventually realize their mistake. They will expect you to be waiting, still hurting, still hoping for their recognition. When they see that you have moved on without hesitation, that you are thriving without their presence, that they no longer have any power over you, that is when they feel the consequences of their actions. Not because you made them suffer, but because they now have to live with the knowledge that they lost someone who never needed them in the first place. Indifference is the most powerful response because it leaves no room for manipulation. It closes the door completely, leaving no opportunity for mind games, guilt trips, or attempts to pull you back in. It shows that you are no longer controlled by emotions tied to the past. You are no longer a participant in their drama. You have moved beyond them, beyond the pain, beyond the need to prove anything. At the core of indifference is self-respect. It is the understanding that your peace, your happiness, and your future are more important than any temporary satisfaction revenge might bring. It is the ultimate display of strength, walking away with your head held high, without bitterness, without looking back, without needing anything from those who once thought they had control over you. And that, more than anything, is what truly shifts the balance in your favor. Focusing on self-growth, rather than someone else's regret, is one of the most liberating choices you can make. It is easy to get caught up in the idea of making someone realize what they lost, hoping that one day they will see your worth and regret the way they treated you. But when your focus is on their realization rather than your evolution, you are still giving them power over your life. You are still looking backward when you should be moving forward. True strength lies not in proving a point, but in growing so much that the past becomes irrelevant. When someone mistreats you, disrespects you, or fails to appreciate your presence, it can feel like an injustice. The natural response is to hope they recognize their mistake, to wait for the day they come back and acknowledge your value. But waiting for someone to regret losing you is a waste of time and energy. Their regret, if it ever comes, is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is yourself, your growth, your healing, your progress. The more you focus on what they think, the less time you spend becoming the person you were meant to be. Growth is an internal process, and it requires detachment from external validation. If you are constantly looking over your shoulder, wondering if they regret their actions, you are still tied to them emotionally. You are still allowing their past behavior to influence your present. But when you shift your attention to yourself, your goals, your passions, your personal evolution, you break free from that attachment. You stop seeking closure from them because you create your own closure through your progress. One of the most powerful things you can do after experiencing rejection or betrayal is to become better, not for them, not to make them miss you, but for yourself. Investing in your self-improvement, developing your skills, and building the life you deserve is far more rewarding than seeking validation from someone who failed to appreciate you. Success and happiness are not tools for revenge. They are signs that you have moved beyond needing revenge in the first place. People often chase the idea of making someone regret losing them because they believe it will bring a sense of justice. But justice is not found in their regret. It is found in your ability to rise above the situation and create something greater for yourself. The best revenge is not proving them wrong, it is realizing they no longer have any impact on your life. The moment their presence or absence becomes irrelevant to your happiness, you have won. The truth is, regret is a slow process. If someone is going to regret losing you, it will happen over time. It will not be because of anything you do to force it. It will be because they will eventually face the consequences of their own choices. Maybe they will see the value you brought when they no longer have access to it. Maybe they will recognize their mistake when they find themselves surrounded by people who do not care for them the way you did. Maybe they will realize it too late. But by the time they do, it will not matter to you, because you will have already built a life where their regret is meaningless. This is why focusing on self-growth is so important. It keeps you grounded in your own journey rather than waiting for someone else's recognition. It pushes you forward instead of keeping you stuck in the past. It allows you to reclaim your power, to take control of your own happiness, and to define your worth based on who you are, not on who acknowledges it. Self-growth is not just about success, it is about healing, learning, and evolving into the best version of yourself. It means developing emotional intelligence, understanding your worth, and building a mindset that no longer depends on external approval. It is about becoming so focused on your own potential that the idea of someone else's regret becomes insignificant. When you prioritize your growth, you naturally attract better opportunities, healthier relationships, and a stronger sense of self. You stop chasing people who do not value you, and instead you start surrounding yourself with those who do. You stop dwelling on the past, and instead you start creating a future that excites you. And when you reach that point, the idea of whether or not someone regrets losing you becomes irrelevant. People will come and go. Some will appreciate you, and some will take you for granted. Some will regret losing you, and some will not. But none of that should affect your growth. Your journey is yours alone, and it should not be dictated by someone else's delayed realization of your value. Let them regret it if they do. Let them move on if they do not. Either way, it does not change the fact that your purpose is not tied to their recognition. Your purpose is to grow, to evolve, and to become the best version of yourself. And when you focus on that, you will find that their regret, if it ever comes, was never the victory you needed. The real victory was in choosing yourself all along. Discipline is the foundation of true freedom. While desire pulls people toward temporary pleasures, discipline directs them toward lasting fulfillment. Many believe that freedom comes from doing whatever they want, whenever they want. But in reality, that kind of impulsive living often leads to chaos, regret, and dependence on external circumstances for happiness. True freedom is not the ability to indulge in every whim, but the ability to control oneself. When discipline takes precedence over desire, a person gains mastery over their mind, actions, and future. Desire is fleeting. It is the urge to seek pleasure, avoid discomfort, and take the easy path. It craves instant gratification, whether through food, entertainment, laziness, or distractions that provide momentary satisfaction, but leave long-term consequences. A person who constantly follows their desires may feel free in the moment, but they eventually become trapped by their own lack of self-control. Overindulgence leads to addiction, procrastination leads to regret, and chasing comfort leads to stagnation. The more a person gives in to their impulses, the more they become a slave to them. Discipline, on the other hand, is the ability to choose long-term growth over short-term pleasure. It is waking up early when it is easier to stay in bed, exercising when it is tempting to skip a workout, studying when distractions are everywhere, and working toward goals even when motivation fades. Discipline is not about depriving oneself of joy. It is about delaying immediate pleasure for a greater reward in the future. It is understanding that true satisfaction comes from progress, not indulgence. Freedom is often misunderstood. Many think that being free means having no restrictions, no rules, and no responsibilities. But in truth, those who lack discipline are not free, they are controlled by their impulses. A person without discipline is a prisoner of their cravings, constantly seeking the next rush of pleasure, the next easy way out, the next distraction from reality. They do not own their actions own them. Freedom does not come from doing whatever one wants, it comes from having the strength to do what is necessary. Consider a person who desires financial stability. If they lack discipline, they may spend recklessly, buy unnecessary things and ignore long-term planning. Over time, their financial situation worsens, and they become trapped in a cycle of stress, debt, and dependence on others. But if they choose discipline, saving money, budgeting, investing, and resisting impulsive spending, they build true financial freedom. They gain the ability to make choices based on what benefits them in the long run, rather than being controlled by short-term cravings. The same principle applies to health. Someone who constantly indulges in unhealthy food, avoids exercise, and ignores self-care may feel like they are enjoying life in the moment. But over time, their body suffers, their energy declines, and their health deteriorates. They become dependent on medication, suffer from preventable illnesses, and lose the physical strength they once had. On the other hand, a person who exercises discipline in their diet and fitness routines gains the ultimate freedom, the ability to move, function, and live without being held back by poor health. Discipline is also essential for mental freedom. Many people are controlled by their emotions, reacting impulsively to situations without thinking. They allow anger, fear, and frustration to dictate their actions, leading to unnecessary conflicts and stress. But those who practice discipline in their thoughts and emotions gain control over their minds. They do not let external circumstances dictate their inner peace. They learn to respond rather than react, to focus on solutions rather than problems, and to cultivate resilience rather than giving in to negativity. This kind of mental strength creates a life of stability and clarity, free from unnecessary suffering. Relationships are another area where discipline leads to freedom. Many people allow toxic relationships to continue because they fear loneliness or confrontation. They stay in unhealthy situations because their desire for comfort outweighs their ability to set boundaries. But discipline allows a person to walk away from what no longer serves them, to say no to people who drain their energy, and to choose connections that contribute to their growth rather than hinder it. The ability to detach from harmful relationships is true freedom. It means one is not bound by fear or emotional weakness, but is strong enough to choose what is right. Discipline is not always easy. It requires effort, consistency, and self-control. There will be times when desire feels stronger, when the temptation to take shortcuts or quit is overwhelming. But every time discipline wins over desire, a person becomes stronger. Each time they push through resistance, they build resilience. Over time, discipline becomes a habit, and what once felt difficult becomes second nature. People often admire those who are successful, fit, financially stable, or emotionally strong. But what they do not always see is the discipline behind that success. They see the results but not the sacrifices. The truth is, anyone can achieve greatness if they choose discipline over desire. The difference between those who succeed and those who struggle is not luck or talent. It is the ability to stay committed to a goal, even when it is challenging. Ultimately, discipline leads to a life of fulfillment. It allows a person to build something meaningful, to grow beyond their limitations, and to achieve what they once thought was impossible. It creates a sense of pride, knowing that their success was earned, not handed to them. It removes regret because they know they gave their best effort. It brings true confidence because they are not controlled by their impulses but by their purpose. Freedom is not found in indulgence but in self-mastery. The person who is disciplined enough to control their desires, to choose growth over comfort, and to remain focused on their goals is the one who experiences real freedom. They do not live at the mercy of their cravings, emotions, or external influences. They shape their own destiny, and in the end that is the most powerful kind of freedom there is. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It is the key that unlocks true freedom, the freedom to control your destiny, to rise above fleeting desires and desires, and to build a life of purpose and fulfillment. Those who master discipline are not bound by impulse or circumstance. They move with intention, undeterred by distractions or temporary setbacks. So, choose discipline over desire. Choose long-term fulfillment over short-term pleasure. Choose the path that leads to strength, resilience, and success. Because in the end, the greatest freedom comes not from doing whatever feels good in the moment, but from having the power to shape your own future.